So here's the sitch on the ATL Boxscore today. Today we're talking pro days at the beginning of the show. We let you know when your school's pro day, when it is on the calendar. Then we have Stanley from the three-point conversion talking all Atlanta Falcons, specifically, though, the hires that they made for their coordinator positions. This is the ATL Boxscore podcast with Alex Berger, Atlanta's newest sports podcast. And you're listening to Football Friday. With starting a new podcast, people ask me all the time, Alex, where do you record your show at? Do you do it at your house? No, I don't do it at my house because of just a lot of different logistical factors. The place that I do it at is actually a place called Spaces, Midtown East. And Spaces is a co-working center where I get my show recorded and I get other work done. Co-working has been one of these new phenomenons in the private business sector that has popped up recently. And Spaces also has another brand called Regis, which is more of a professional brand. Spaces is more for creators like myself. But to tell you more about these special brands in the business world is Mr. Steve Choi.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate those kind words. We absolutely love having you and ATL Boxscore as part of our space. It's always great when we see you doing your work. But absolutely, Spaces and the Regis concept, we are both workplace providers here in the Atlanta area, but all around the world. We have over 250 Spaces locations worldwide, plus over 1,500 Regis locations. And what we're really here to do is just provide flexible options for any type of professional, whether you're an independent professional, creative, or if you're a large or small business. So we have several different types of options from small to large and memberships, part-time, full-time. So definitely come on out and check us out. Go ahead and look at the link on Alex's site and ask for Steve Choi. And if you ever come into one of our locations, let us know that Alex sent you or ATL Boxscore, and we'll go ahead and set you up with a free 5-day test drive.
Yeah, you can't beat that 5-day test drive. In those 5 days, you will know if Spaces or Regis is the right brand for you. And Spaces is all over the place. They're a little bit more limited, but they're in the main areas of the city. The one we are is right in the heart of Midtown, near the Fox Theater. There's one at the Battery. There's going to be one opening up North Point Mall there. And there's also a location in Colony Square. So they are all over the metro area. At just about any major business building in the Atlanta area has a Regis in it. So just Google them. But Spaces and Regis and Steve Choi in particular is your place to do your business. Man, it's just another dreary day. I get it. It's this time of year that you're just going to have gray skies consistently till late March, April-ish, till when it actually feels like spring. And then it's like we'll have a nice week, then the pollen will come out as it usually does. So, but I like sunshine instead of gray skies. And this week has just been, oh my gosh. It's like you just want to stay in bed or you just want to take like 20 naps a day to get you through the day. And when there's colors and having nice days with sunshine, it does affect me. It does affect my happiness and my grogginess in some ways. In some ways, not all. Depending on what the weather does, it doesn't always depend. I mean, it doesn't always affect my happiness, but it has something to do with it. Okay, well, this is the ATL Boxscore podcast with Alex Berger. In case you're wondering, I am Alex Berger, and it's just me in this segment, but we do have Stanley on coming up on the 3-point conversion, talking all Atlanta Falcons. He's going to take us the rest of the way home. I'm just going to have this segment kind of, I guess we can call it my rant segment, where I just rant about something. And like the weather, it's just nothing. It's like there's nothing to talk about in some aspects. You can try to do, but this is just, this is just meh. And then it's like a look at 6A, the fan stuff on social media, and Brave spring training is in full force now. They've started spring training, I think, yesterday, but it's always the big players like Brian McCann, Dansby Swanson, Freddie Freeman, all their guys usually all the guys that are playing significant roles for the Braves always seem to come up when the pitchers and catchers are coming up. A little concerning though. It seems like all the guys that have been highlighted are the big hitter guys like Freeman, Swanson, Culberson. That'll be interesting to see. This year's going to be the Culberson experiment, especially at third base. But you do have Camargo also too. I do talk about him. We're doing a new segment called Atlanta Braves Profiles, Players, and Playas. So be sure to check that out in our last podcast that we did about Zion Williams. Man, that was crazy too. Zion Williams going down on the first play and having his shoe kind of implodes. I guess implodes would be the correct terminology for that. And now he's day to day, but that's the random sports talk that I'm just going down. But now we're actually going to settle into some football conversation, because like I said, today's Football Friday, and we have a name for each show. We have recapping the weekend, which we do on a Monday, so that's like our Monday show, and we just talk about what happened during the weekend, hence recapping the weekend. Then we have Pro Style Wednesday, which is our show where we talk about stuff that's going on in the middle of the week that's relevant with the sports climate. And we usually have like our NBA talk on Monday, and we have college basketball talk on Wednesday, which after college basketball season will probably shift to more of a baseball conversation. That might be our big baseball day, is on a Wednesday, and maybe Monday would be our Atlanta United day. Or we'll see what's going on. We got to take it day by day here at ATL Boxscore, which usually for a startup podcast, startup business, that's kind of what you do. So, with that, be sure to check us out on social media, and be sure to, 5 minutes in, I'm having a call to action, guys. Be sure to check us out on social media. We are on all the three major Facebook, Twitter, and Insta. We are also on the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Google Play. That usually covers everything when you're on iTunes, Google Play, because some people have the Samsung people get the Google Play stuff. Obviously, the Apple people get the Apple stuff. We're also on Stitcher and Podbeam, And you can access that through whatever, as long as you have an internet connection. So check us out on those. Give us some love. Give us some likes. Give us some hopefully you can, if you want to, you can subscribe. You can get this podcast on the regular, which we just want to reach a big of audience that we can. So be sure to reach us on those and do us a favor, hit the like button. So with that, we're going to jump right into Football Friday, and we're going to dive into pro days, because the AJC this week released a schedule of when the pro days are going to happen. And I'm going off this article, and if you're just like, what the heck is a pro day? If you're an NFL guy, you probably don't know. Well, I mean, you might know what they are. Or you're just a casual football fan. Well, you have the Combine, which is next weekend in Indianapolis. Me and Stanley talk a little bit about the Combine. So we got that coverage there at the end of the podcast. But what a pro day is kind of like a combine. From a standpoint of, you do all the things that you do at a combine, the weigh-in, the jumping, all the measurables that these NFL people home in on, that if you I can see for the 40 time, trying to run 40 time in a certain time period, but your vertical leap and all these other variable things that they check, I think is kind of ridiculous to see if you're going to be a great football player. But with that being said, these pro days are exactly that, and they happen. Combines one day. These pro days are only combines several days. These pro days are only one day. Reverse that, what I just said. So, a pro day is, like I said, mini combine, but it's held at that particular campus or whatever school they're going to. And they invite all these NFL people to come out and do drills. And the NFL people pretty much just take over the place. And you do the drills that the NFL people want to see. So, with that being said, that's pretty much a pro day in a nutshell. Obviously, the more talent you have, the bigger the who's who will show up. Bill Belichick was at Georgia's last year. Not that many big names show up for Georgia Tech, but all these regional scouts will be at said place at said time, because usually you majority of the time for these things you get representation from all 32 teams, or a majority of the 32, but definitely at a place like Georgia, you'll get, especially this year, you'll get representation from all 32 teams. So you jump, you leap for joy at these pro days, but the big thing I always feel like, especially for the quarterback position, a lot of guys elect not to throw in this. I think because you're going to have a crop of quarterbacks that are going to come out into the draft. I think that if people know, if you don't need to throw, then I'm in for you not throwing at the combine, because I used to think that was dumb, but now I kind of realize if you don't need to throw, don't throw, is my advice. Because at the pro day, you're working with your teammates, and with the combine, you're pretty much throwing to strangers, so you don't know how they like the ball. They don't know how you're going to throw the ball. You can only speculate, but it's like, I feel like it's better throwing with your teammates, because honestly, let's be honest, if you're going to start a rookie quarterback, which not a lot of NFL teams do anyways, you, especially throwing the ball around, like, you just can't make those throws to strangers in a less than a week period. But you can throw to your teammates who you've been throwing for the past 4 to 5 years, 3 years, whatever. There's just better continuity when you do that. But let's go down the list. On March 11th, you have Arkansas's Pro Day. That's at 9 a.m. March 12th, you're having Georgia Tech. That's going to be huge for Georgia Tech just from a standpoint. They had no players from Georgia Tech invited to the Combine. March 13th is Mercer and Georgia Southern. Tennessee is on March 14th. And it's funny, they give you the times. Like Kennesaw on the 12th is at 2:30. Georgia Southern is at 1:30. Mercer's at, so you could literally go from Mercer's Pro Day down to Georgia Southern's Pro Day, which is on the same day. You might have to leave Mercer probably around 10ish, maybe 11:30 at the most to get down to Georgia Southern. But it's on the way there. I mean, you just go down 75 and you're going to run into Statesboro going down, connecting to 16. So Tennessee's on the 14th at 8 a.m. That's early dates. So if you're an NFL scout, you probably want to spend the night over in Knox Vegas. West Georgia, I don't know, well, let's say HAC. West Georgia is on March 15th. Same with Georgia State. Again, you could go from, if you're an NFL scout, spend the night down in the Columbus area, check out West Georgia, and then leave around 11:30, probably at the latest. Go up 85 and just kind of hang a right at Georgia State Stadium, and boom, you're there. So I think that's what a lot of these scouts are probably going to do in this Georgia State. I mean, in the state of Georgia, because literally you have Mercer, that's at 8 o'clock, which is middle Georgia. Then you have Georgia Southern, which is probably like a 2 to 3 hour drive. Same thing for West Georgia to Georgia State. Then on March 19th, you're going to have Alabama at noon, which that seems like pretty decent time. You don't necessarily have to spend the night in Tuscaloosa. And then on March 20th, you're going to have Georgia at 9 o'clock. Out of all these schools, Georgia's always the one that does it later. Kirby Smart, for some reason, likes this stuff later. He likes to do spring practice later. He likes to, obviously, the pro days later in this duration of pro days. So, but again, there's no reason why Georgia is going to have another huge pro day. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Belichick's there, if Sean McVay is there, all the guys that have an influence on the league from a scouting standpoint on March 20th at 9 o'clock, which all of them are probably going to spend the night in Athens, are going to be at Georgia's pro day. Guaranteed. I guarantee that. So, with that being said, that is the rundown of all the pro days about to go down this next week, because where we are right now in the off season, if you aren't watching the AAF, that's going to take a while. This is where we're at. We're in combine and pro day mode. So, and yeah, we're kind of in clinics too. A lot of coaches clinics going on this time of year, which they usually do. So we're in pro day and clinic mode. Soon we're going to be in spring practice mode for a lot of colleges. So things are happening. Football will be back here before we know it. I know it's tough watching the AFF. But with that being said, we're actually going to have Ab Stanley on from the 3-point conversion. Again, be sure, if you like what you heard so far, if you like this Football Friday, this is kind of a down Football Friday, I'll admit that. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like us on social. And by the way, we're on social media, all the three major ones. But we are Atlanta's newest podcast here at the ATL Boxscore. So we got a lot of. It's always fun following something new, following something at like the basement level. And yes, we were at the basement level. I'll admit that. As this host, we don't have all the fancy things. We don't have a copyright license and everything like that to get copyright material and stuff. But hopefully we can get there. And hopefully through your support, you guys can help us get there. So you're listening at the basement level, and hopefully we're going to be in the high rise in the next couple of years. So we have all that information going to be in our show description. So be sure to check us out. Be sure to hit that like button, because that's the way you can support us, is hitting that like button and hitting the subscribe button and giving us good reviews on iTunes and such. So be sure to do that. Do that now. Do that now before we get Ab Stanley on. Subscribe, like, give us a good review. If you think we deserved it, of course. I'm not going to try to force this down your throat, but I am just letting you be aware of what because we need your help to be successful here online. We would like to build an audience, and we would like to get the show to whoever wants to listen to it. And at the same time, we want to grow the show. We want to make the show be successful. So, and we need your help doing that. I don't think a lot of people realize that. So with that, we are going to bring on Ab Stanley to break down the Atlanta Falcons for you. Well, now we want to bring on to the ATL Boxscore podcast Mr. Ab Stanley from the 3-point conversion. And Ab, how are you doing this morning, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good this morning. How you doing?
I'm good. Tired of this weather and ready to see some sunshine, but other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's up and down kind of Georgia weather is what we're used to, I guess.
Right. Well, there's been a lot of changes with the Atlanta Falcons, which the season that they had, you knew that there were a lot of changes coming. So I just want to get your opinion on these changes that Dan Quinn made, bringing back Dirk Cutter, having a new special teams coordinator, and Dan Quinn, Dan Quinn taking over the defensive play calling role. But first, before we dive into all that, I just want to know, just overall, what did you think of these changes? Do you feel like this was necessary for the Falcons moving forward?
I don't know about necessary, but they were inevitable after the season the Falcons had last year. When you think about the defense being close to last in the NFL, they're going to make a change on that side of the ball, and then their offense, which was supposed to still be healthy and still good, it couldn't get out of games. They couldn't score. They couldn't get first down. You just knew that Sarkisian was going to be gone after that. So I don't know if it was a necessary thing, but more like inevitable. He kind of thought Stark was on a short leash after his first season there in Atlanta, and you had high expectations for a defense that in 2017, I want to say, they won every game when they scored 20 points. Their defense was really good. So, then, regardless of the fact of the injuries that they had, you could just see that there was going to be a change coming when the season started to go, whether they had made the playoffs or not. Because remember, the NFC was very regular, run of the mill toward the end of the season. Like the Falcons had a chance for a playoff push for many weeks down the stretch. It's not like they were out of the playoffs after like the fourth week of the season. So it was like you could just tell that the change was needed, and a necessity maybe on the offense because you don't want to waste the premium Matt Ryan years. I mean, how many more years do you think you have with him? I know he just signed a long-term 5-year deal, whatever, $150 million, but it's like, how many of those years are premium Matt Ryan years? 3 or 4 maybe? You've got Julio Jones turning 30 soon. Like you have premium years with this offense. So we probably had to make a change on the offensive side. That was probably the only necessity. Out of the 3, the special teams, I mean, I guess you just cleaning the house and you just decided to just start over with a new leaf. So I don't know if it was a necessity, but I'd say out of the 3, the offense was the one you needed to make the change on most.
Now, speaking of offense, it's really surprising to think Julio Jones being almost turning 30. That's a little bit of a shocker because, well, then you think about it, he's being injury riddled in his first 5 years with the Falcons. But do you feel like the Falcons made a good pick or made a good hire with bringing back Dirk Cutter? Because Matt Ryan's it's been a revolving door when it comes to coordinators, because he's kind of been like Jason Campbell at Auburn. That every year Jason Campbell was at Auburn, he had a new offensive coordinator, and it seems like recently every year he got a new offensive coordinator, I want to say probably like 5-6 year span, and it literally took him a year to get used to that system, and then he would be great in that system in year 2. And then it's like they would get a new offensive coordinator, then his production would go down, and people here would talking about getting rid of Matt Ryan and blaming Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan. Unfortunately, he's always a scapegoat for the Falcons. But yeah, what do you feel about this hire with their offense, getting a guy like Dirk Cutter? Because I think it's great.
Yeah, you already alluded to the fact that you don't want to change up another coordinator for Matt Ryan. He's had Shanahan, he's had Stark last 4 years. If you're going to get another guy, why not go to a guy he had before rather than get a brand new guy, a brand new system? And let's not kid ourselves here. This is not Matt Ryan taking time to learn. I say out of the 3 guys, Shanahan's system was the most intricate. And that probably took a year for Matt to learn all the terminology, the nuances, and so forth. Let's be real. The Sarkisian system, it wasn't about a system more so it was him calling the plays. And with Cutter, I think it's the same thing. Matt Ryan's a veteran. Him, Julio Jones, a couple of the offensive linemen, Mohamed Sanu, those guys are veterans. So there's not going to be too many new things in an offense that they haven't seen, that they haven't run before. It'll all come down to play calling realistically. And the difference between a Shanahan offense and a Sarkisian offense is the Shanahan offense was number 1 in the league when he was calling the plays. If you even see Shanahan in San Francisco with the 3rd string, 4th string quarterback, he could still put up 329 yards with his type of offense. So it's not really more so a new offense, more so that you want to get that familiarity with Matt when it comes to play calling. And you want to get back to some of the things the Falcons did that made Matt Ryan successful. Now, I know he was the MVP under Shanahan again, but, you know, he had pretty good years. I want to say made that NFC title game when Derek Cutter was there previously as an offensive coordinator. So you're not really getting back to a familiarity with a playbook because Matt Ryan's been around. He should know most every play that they run in the NFL, especially as we alluded to. He had so many coordinators before this. It's really more about play calling, and that's really where the Falcons need the boost. You know, they're going to need some upgrades on the offensive line. They're going to need some different players, skill position players, right? But the real upgrade they wanted in the coaching staff was the play calling, was the offensive set play calling, was the defensive play calling where Dan Quinn is going to take over. So it's like when you ask if Derek Cutter is the great hire because he knows what kind of plays to call to make Matt successful. And then if your quarterback is successful more times than none, these plays, these type of things lead to your team being successful. But the problem was last year Matt Ryan had a pretty good year, and the rest of the offense didn't look that great. So you want to kind of get that balance to where Matt Ryan's having a good year, Julio Jones having a good year, and the offense is having a good year, not just those two guys.
Let's throw out a hypothetical right now. And granted that we don't know. We know Dirk Cutter. We know he's going to work well with Matt Ryan. I feel like that's the key thing that they brought Dirk Cutter back is because let's bring back a guy that can have can have success off the bat. Say Dirk Cutter works out for the Falcons, and 3 years from now, we're talking about head coaching, who would be a good head coaching candidate. And I'm assuming if he has success here, that the doors are going to open for him to get another head coaching job. Do you think Dirk Cutter's going to take it, or do you think he realized with his time in Tampa that he's good being an offensive coordinator? He doesn't really want to pursue anything else.
Yeah, I don't know that any coach would want to settle for being a coordinator. I think coaches understand that they're good at certain jobs, and that when they fail as a head coach, they definitely will revisit being an offensive coordinator, being a defensive coordinator. But if there's a head coaching job available, I'm sure Dirk Cutter will want to get back into coaching, running his own team. And I would be sure that especially if it's 2-3 years down the road and Matt Ryan and the Falcons offense is doing good, I would be sure that he thinks he deserves a head coaching job. So it's like these guys, I don't know that the union of these coaches and these coordinators can ever last. You know, you don't know how long Dan Quinn is going to last. Realistically, if he has another bad season or two, despite what all the changes he made, like you could easily see him getting fired. So I think if Dirk Cutter doing
all these changes he's made, do you think it bought him 5 years?
That remains to be seen because it all comes down to production. There's not anything you can pinpoint why a coach gets, not even wins and losses. You can't pinpoint why somebody gets fired. But you can tell when somebody has a shortening leash. When the year that you fire all your coordinators and replace them with all new guys is usually your penultimate year if you don't change things right then and there. If he's changed all these guys and they have a losing season this year, I don't think he makes it past next season. So it's like, what I'm saying is if Cutter can come out, somehow show his worth on the offensive side, I don't see why he would stay as just a coordinator, especially if people are coming knocking down his door for a head coaching job. But it will all remain to be seen. That production will have to be shown That offense will have to improve significantly, especially that run game. And then we'll talk about Dirk Cutter possibly getting another head coaching job, because it's very hard. But trust me, failing at being a head coach is not going to deter you from wanting to be a head coach.
You said something interesting right there, that it's like the run game has to improve. With Freeman being out of the lineup, or out of the starting lineup, and just depending on putting the load on Coleman. But if you have a healthy Freeman, you have a healthy Coleman, then the run game, you would assume, would be there. Is it a thing? Is it a key that both those guys have to be healthy for the Falcons to be able to run the ball against people?
No, I don't believe so. I think the Falcons have to be able to run the football versus people. That's just a statement in itself. They have to actually try. They have to do more things as an extension of the run game than they have last year. I always go back to the fact, and I don't know if it was across the league, but it was definitely in Atlanta. Whatever happened to them running screens with the running back? When you got a guy like Kevin Coleman who can actually catch out the backfield, there's hardly any wheel routes. There's hardly any screen routes. And it's like, well, when Freeman was there, Coleman did all of that stuff. Well, no, it's not because Freeman was there. It's because Coleman has that skill. And you actually found another running back in Smith who can take some of the load off Coleman. You can give carries to. He can go between the tackles and run like a traditional running back. I know Freeman has a little bit of pass catching ability too at the backfield, but it's like, what would Freeman have changed if you're not going to go to that well? And Freeman is a better running back. He's a good running back in this league, and I'm sure he would have gained a lot more yards and did a lot more things for the running game. But I just think the Falcons abandoned the run too much, too early, and too often in the games they played this previous season. It's like you still had the running back. You remember before the season, even when Freeman first got hurt, nobody really panicked because he's like, Coleman can take the load. Well, I didn't see where his talents suddenly evaded everybody and he just disappeared. I saw a lack of going to that well. I saw a lack of them using screen passes and wheel passes out the backfield. It's like, they're down, so let's throw it for the rest of the game. That's not good for Matt Ryan. That's not good for that offense. I mean, it only looks good on the stat sheet for the quarterback and the wide receiver, but then how many wins and losses did you get? How balanced was your offense when the running game was almost dead last? And you guys were throwing the football really well. Like, it's no balance on the offense. And I don't think Freeman would have changed that. I really think that they dropped the ball offensively this year overall with the play calling and with their execution on the field, because it really came down to an unwillingness to run the football. And that's usually because they were either down early or they tried to run the football and those plays didn't work. That falls solely on Sarkisian's feet, if you ask me.
Well, going forward, if there was an identity that you feel like the Falcons had to live up to, because that was another problem. They didn't really have an identity. And you talk about that they weren't balanced on offense. I think that's probably part of the problem. So what type of identity do you feel like they need to establish to be successful?
They need to establish one. I don't know what kind it is. They need to establish one. They hired Dan Quinn to duplicate the Seahawks defense, the Legion of Boom defense. And what these coordinators start to realize when they get head coaching jobs is they don't have the same players they had as the coordinator. And rarely, I won't say never, because I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen numerous times where the coordinator gets to a team, he knows what he wants, he gets the players that he wants, and in 2 or 3 seasons, you understand, boom, they're doing good and they're sustaining good. Now, it kind of looked like that when Quinn first came here, right?
Right.
Kind of looks like Yeah, we got this guy year one, we're 8-8, year two, we're in the Super Bowl, year three, we're in the playoffs, or however it goes. First 3 years, no losing season. And then this year was terrible.
Right.
There's a sustained identity for teams, even when they have a crappy season. Like the Steelers didn't make the playoffs. Have the Steelers really changed identity? Will they go ahead and get some more interior linemen, some more stud linebackers up front, want to pound you in the ground with the football and stop you on the ground on the other side? The Steelers will still have an identity, and they didn't make the playoffs. The Patriots won the Super Bowl. Nothing will change about their identity. They'll always have depth. They'll always have next man up mentality. They'll always not turn the football over and keep their quarterback clean, whether his name is Tom Brady or Matt Castle or Jimmy Garoppolo. They'll always keep that guy upright. That's their philosophy. The Falcons don't have one. The Falcons' philosophy is, from as long as I've been here in Atlanta for 10 years, is let's try something and see if it sticks. It stuck for a couple of years. But now you don't even understand what they are under Quinn. That's very alarming if you're a Falcons fan. That's very alarming. They're supposed to be a fast defense, right? This is their identity, what it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be an up-tempo offense to go along with a fast defense where you can't identify who the pass rusher is, or you just can't stop the guy who's rushing the passer, right? Their defense is supposed to be fast, free-flowing, smaller linebackers, smaller ends who can get to the football and gang tackle, right? So if they want to get back to whatever the Dan Quinn mentality is, they're going to have to first get a little bit more gritty on both sides of the football. If they're going to get back to that, the guys are going to have to want it this year. The defensive guys that they have remaining and that they bring in have to be hungry. They have to realize that they got humiliated in 2018 and they have something to prove in 2019. So I think the only identity that they had with Quinn that could probably still remain is that they were hungry. They were a fast-paced team before, so we don't know if they can remain that way. We don't know what they're going to do at running back overall. We don't know what they're going to do with all the wide receivers overall. Free agency hasn't started, but a lot of players have been released, a lot of change of scenery already. So it's like we don't know what the team is going to look personnel-wise, but as far as their identity is concerned, they want to play fast. They want to play fast offensively, and they want to play fast defensively, personnel-wise. They want to get as many plays as they can and they want to keep their defense as fresh as they can. But
that's how they got to the Super Bowl, with that mentality of play.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I said that's how they got to the Super Bowl.
Right. They play up tempo.
Right. Yeah. You play with the fast defense that you don't know who's blitzing or who's coming to kill the quarterback, and then it's like you just boom, 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 boom. You're down the field and you score a touchdown. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they had such an early lead in the Super Bowl when they played in the Super Bowl.
Well, I think that Super Bowl they had an early affection for the refs in that Super Bowl. If you watch, the one thing I've laid down and pinpointed in that Super Bowl is, if you notice, they made all the plays and got every call for the ref in the first quarter, first half, and in the second half they didn't get any calls. Not saying it was their fault, not saying the refs are cheating for the Patriots or whatever, but they weren't making the small plays in that second half. Because let's face it, if you're up 28-3, you were doing something right. Like, it wasn't a fluke. You were beating the Patriots. You had a better team. You had the team to do it. But I've watched 2 out of 3 years the Patriots have a better team and win the Super Bowl. So I don't know that that's always even the case. What you had, realistically, back then that you don't have now is you had the play calling. You had Shanahan. You had Quinn, who took over the defensive play calling, if you remember that season, toward the end of that season. And you had them. That's what made them get to the Super Bowl that year. They're not getting there if you don't have the great play calling of both the coordinator, Quinn being the de facto defensive coordinator in that situation. So it's like, I don't know what the Falcons' talent will look like. Right now, you've got probably the best wide receiver in the league. You've got a top 10 quarterback. You've got one of the better defensive tackles in the league. And then everything else is a crapshoot to me. I mean, can you really look at this team and say you like their linebackers? I mean, I like Jones, but can he stay healthy? And then I don't really like any of the linebackers. I was real big on.
What about Calvin Ridley, though?
On offense? Yeah. But he's here too.
Right.
He had a good and he's year 2. So it's like you don't know what year 2 Calvin Ridley, year 3 Calvin. You're hoping, he looks to be the guy that's going to be flank Julio Jones and then maybe even eventually take over for him. But you just don't know. Like, he's still very much a variable in this offense. Julio Jones is a stud. Matt Ryan's a top 10 quarterback. Like, you really only know that, and that Grady Jarrett is a top 5 defensive tackle. But what is Vic Beasley? Is Sanu going to be here even, right? What is Tack McKinley? What is Duke Riley? What are your cornerbacks? I mean, are you making a big free agent move? Who are you drafting? Like, everything about the Falcons right now is so up in the air. It's kind of alarming again to the Falcons fans, because a couple years ago, you're in the Super Bowl, and now you don't know what the team is going to look like. Quinn has 3 straight non-losing seasons, and after 1 losing season, you don't know if he's the guy. It sounds far-fetched and it sounds messed up, but it's actually very, very true. There's a big question mark on what the Falcons are this year going forward.
To me, there's a big question mark what they're going to look like defensively, because you have a lot of guys on that side of the ball coming back. But it's like, offensively, I look at this because you got Julio Jones on one side, then you got Calvin Ridley on the other, and I get what you're coming from. You don't know what his sophomore season is going to be like. You don't know what type of injuries he's going to have.
Sorry to cut you off, but more so, you don't know what he's going to be, because you know that they're going to expect him to move up on that wide receiver tree. Like, he's going to be expected, if it's not this year, he's going to be expected to be the number 2. If it's not this year, it's going to be next year. So you just don't know how he's going to handle the role of being.
The benchmark for him was that he was always consistent at Alabama.
Correct.
So
that's college.
I get that, and I get that side of the argument. But yeah, okay. We know he's consistent this year, but yeah, he'll be a little bit questionable next year. Okay, he'll get his double teams. But my
I'm sorry.
But my thing is, though, I'm thinking if you have a healthy Coleman, you have a healthy Friedman, like, there's no reason why this offense can't look like the Rams offense from this past year.
I can give you a big reason, and it's called offensive line. Like,
okay, I'll give you that. I guess what I'm thinking of all the skill players.
You're thinking best case scenario, but again, I'm just seeing a question mark. I'm seeing variable. Even what you just said, they should, right? But you don't know what Freeman looks like after the injury. You don't know if Coleman will even be here, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, I understand what you're telling me, but I just see question mark. Every time you raise something about their team going into this year, it's a question mark. Now, I know a lot of those questions will be filled at free agency and at the draft, and that will be a welcome sight for the Falcons fan, because remember, this is a city that has a lot of woe is me attitude. I watched the Atlanta United soccer team that was clearly the favorite to win the MLS Cup. Atlanta clearly had the best team. They got the best stadium with the best fans in MLS, and half of the fans that day were, man, I don't know, it just happened to Georgia. I was like, you guys can't have this mentality seriously about winning everything. It's like, okay, you guys fell a little short. You still got a good team. Like, they were talking about Georgia falling short in the SEC title game. Georgia still has a good team. You know what I'm saying? Like, The Falcons fans that are a little bit shook, they have a right to be. They don't know what their team is going to look like. Everything you say is good about their team. I can put a question mark on it. How healthy will Julio Jones be next year? How will Matt Ryan look in year, what is he, 34 next year? Like, how will he look at year old? We don't know a lot of these things. So the two things you can bank on is Matt Ryan is a top 10 quarterback. Julio Jones is maybe the top wide receiver. He's definitely top 2 or 3 in the league. Those guys will come to play. Who's protecting Matt Ryan? Question mark. Who's Matt Ryan handing the ball off to? Question mark. Okay, you say Calvin Ridley should be less of a question mark at wide receiver. I'll give you that. Who are the rest of the wide receivers? Question mark. You see
Austin
that?
Hooper.
Everything else. Huh?
Austin Hooper at tight end.
Right. Tight end, question mark. Are you with Austin Hooper from 2018? Austin Hooper from 2017? Austin Hooper from rookie year?
Austin Hooper that made the Pro Bowl this year.
Right. You've had 3 different – he's been in the league 3 years. You've had 3 different versions of him, correct? I'm trying to tell you. You're hoping that these guys come back. Like, Austin Hooper –
That's too hilarious. That is too
yeah,
funny.
People were expecting Austin Hooper to step up this year, and he did. God bless him. God bless him. Can he do that next year? Now with the added attention of being a Pro Bowler, you see, the only non-question mark I have on defense is Grady Jarrett, and guess what? We don't know if he's going to get paid, and he's deservedly so, ready to get paid, and we don't know if the Falcons will break the bank.
Right.
Deion Jones is a stud at linebacker. We don't know how healthy he is. I was told all season, all through the playoffs, how healthy Todd Gurley was. Then they lose the Super Bowl. He gets about 4 carries. And yesterday or the day before, I hear one of his teammates come out and say, he's really hurt. Like, we know that. We knew he was hurt. You guys didn't want to tell us that, but we had to know that. So, after a while, you start seeing some of these guys break down. And it doesn't have to be for the full season. It could be for just a couple game stretch. The Falcons have a lot of question marks, and they're going to have to do a good job with the draft and free agency to solve a lot of those question marks.
Well, let me ask you about another question mark, and this has nothing to do with player personnel. Do you feel like Dan Quinn's a good fit for calling defensive plays? Do you feel like that should be his role, or he should have hired a defensive coordinator?
See, I'm always under the assumption that if you were hired because you were good on one side of the ball, well, then that's what you should be still good at. Like, I always laughed at the fact that Brian Billick, who was an offensive guy, went to Baltimore, became the head coach. He might have been the head coach when they were in Cleveland, but he was the head coach of the Ravens, and they won the Super Bowl on defense, and he was an offensive guy. I always laughed at that. I always laughed at the guy who comes over as a specialist on one thing, and then he's a head coach, and his team is known for the other side. That was Dan Quinn the year they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
His team was known for offense. It was always laughable to me, but what he really had at that point was an offensive guy. Basically, an assistant head coach was an offensive guy. So when he's a good defensive play caller, he needs to go ahead and call the defensive plays. And he needs to have a guy run the offense, and he needs to make all final personnel decisions. And he'll be a better head coach if he does that. You don't want to be Rex Ryan where you don't know anything about the offense, what's going on, the plays, but you kind of want somebody else to run it. Therefore, you take your hands off the wheel. You can focus on what you do better. And then you can focus on what you're learning how to do, which I guess now he has been doing it for a couple of years, being a head coach, being a final say on personnel, being the final say on who gets in the game or whatever, and what you want to run. But he's going to have to be more hands-on the side that he's known for. Because let's face it, if you got a guy who's a defensive guy, none of his defenses are intricate, none of his nothing is going on that side of the ball, then why are you hiring another coordinator to do the play calling? You should at least hire another coordinator to help you get everything set up on the defense, and you call the plays on the defense. There's nothing wrong with it. I know Belichick is probably the staple for NFL coaches, and yeah, he had another guy calling the defensive plays. That's what he felt he needed to do for his team to win.
Well, at the same time, though, that it's like, as a head coach, you're making calls. Do we go for it on fourth down? Do I challenge this call? Do I accept this thing?
Some guys don't do that, though. I'm telling you, Rex Ryan's tenure in New York will show you. He did not know almost anything about the offense. He came out in a press conference and almost admitted as such. I don't really deal with that side of the football.
I get that he won't know like stuff about the offense, but do you think though he made decisions like, yeah, we're gonna go for it on 4th and 1? What's the play, coach?
He should. I mean, he should. He should. You would think that when Shanahan is continuing to throw the football in that Super Bowl, he comes to him and says, "Hey, we got to get some runs in here." He should, but again, these guys don't really have the capacity. So if you're going to be a defensive coordinator guy that comes in and becomes a head coach, well, you should at least be able to call the defensive plays, I think.
So
I don't understand
you're
your work.
too that it's like these head coaches that just so specialized on their side of the ball don't make a decision. We're going to go for it on 4th and 1.
Sean Payton. So what? Yeah, but we're talking about Dan. Are we talking about other coaches, or are we talking about Dan Quinn specifically?
Dan Quinn.
I think other coaches would. I don't know that Dan Quinn does.
Just leave it to your offensive coordinator to decide if you're going to go for it on 4th and 1.
But did he step in the Super Bowl and tell Shanahan to change the rate of how we were playing? And again, I'm a Falcons fan, and I'm taking up for the Falcons. I say that's how you got to the Super Bowl, the way you were playing in the Super Bowl. So you don't want to really change, but all you want to come in and tell them, hey, let's get a couple run plays on this drive. I didn't see that happen. I don't know that happens. That Dan Quinn steps in and says, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he left that up to. He might have done that last year.
Gotcha.
Because I just don't think they had ultimate confidence in Sarkisian.
I know Saban's that way. I know Saban makes all those calls. That there's no way he's gonna let an offensive coordinator, even though he has that strong defensive background, but there's no way he's gonna let an offensive coordinator decide if they're gonna go for it on 4th and 1.
College is a different
I get
animal.
College is a different animal altogether, but that just kind of surprises me.
It just happens too much in the NFL, whether you believe it or not. That
wow.
The defensive coordinator, he handles all the defense, and the offensive coordinator, he handles the whole entire offense. If you're the head coach, you should make all the ultimate decisions. But like I said, you can't look at certain teams and tell me you can't see that this guy doesn't make the decisions. And I don't know that Quinn does, and I don't know that Quinn is equipped to. Let's even get that out of the way. I don't know if Quinn is equipped to. I don't know if he even has the feel for the offensive game. I think guys who are coordinators, for the most part, they know how to play offense so their defense doesn't suffer. You know what I mean? It's like same thing, but you got a guy like Andy Reid. Now, I know he makes all the ultimate decisions. He's just been around so long. But realistically, he runs his offense, and the defensive coordinator runs the defense until certain situations. So how do you know? You know what I mean? We don't know what's going on in the sideline. Andy Reid could leave that to his defensive coordinator there. You know what I'm saying? Let's blitz on form down there. You know what I'm saying?
But I would just think that the head coach would make a final decision that would affect, because going forward on 4th and 1 is a whole team decision, because you're either going to keep the ball and keep on going on offense, or your defense is going to have to immediately come on the field.
Okay, so even in that situation, let's say you have a young head coach.
Yeah.
Do you think he makes it definitive? Even if he makes the decision, he's still, hey, Chuck, what do you think? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Cliff Kingsbury, for instance, he's taking over, right? Comes a 4th and 1. He's an offensive guy. It's 4th and 1, and they're going for it on defense. His defense has to stay on the field. Do you think he has the play call? this is what we're going to run against their 4th and 1, or you think he leaves that to his defensive coordinator?
I think he has a play call, but I think the decision should lie with the head coach.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna run to the right, or we're gonna do a quarterback draw up the middle. And
that would be him on offense. But I'm like, if his defense is on the field and they're going for it on 4th and 1, like he's not gonna have the play call to stop them on 4th and 1.
Okay. I got you on that side. Okay.
Like,
I was
be
more
like, run a weak side blitz.
Right.
He's going to leave it to his coordinator.
Right.
So I'm thinking Quinn is the same way. Now, Quinn might say, listen, we should just kick the field goal or we should punt it. You know what I'm saying? Or we should go for it on 4th and 1. But after making the decision, he probably takes his hands right back off the wheel. So it's like, okay, Quinn makes the decision to go for 4th and 1. Who's calling the play?
Yeah.
Derek Cutter's going to call the play.
Right.
So he has to have that confidence in his offensive coordinator, but he's a defensive guy. So that's what I'm telling you. He should be able to just take the reins as that defensive guy. Forget getting somebody else to call your plays for you. You're a defensive guy. You've made the Super Bowl 3 times overall as a defensive guy. You're a head coach once, you were a coordinator twice. That counts for something. You should use that to your advantage. I don't think that he should have hired another defensive guy to call the plays for him because that's his forte. That's his side of the ball. That's what he should do. But when it comes to the offense, that's why I think Cutter was such a great move because I just don't think whether he is or isn't, I can't see that he's that hands-on offensively.
On special teams, do you think they made a right hire hiring a special teams coordinator?
Like I said, you're just gonna clean house. You're gonna have a new kicker, whether it's the young kid they had at the end of last season, or if you bring another guy.
It looks like it's gonna be the Vecchio kid.
Yeah, he's pretty good, and he has an active leg, so. But still, you're still bringing in him now through the training camp as your guy. You don't want to get him another guy. Well, on special teams, it gets lost by the wayside. It's almost like, okay, yeah, he's a special teams guy. And then, like, Devin Hester comes out of nowhere, and everybody pays attention to special teams for 4 or 5 years. You see what I mean? Like, special teams is a very intricate part of these teams. And remember, that was another thing the Falcons were better at in their Super Bowl years, special teams coverage and gaining yards on punting kick returns. So you definitely needed a change there. Like, it's going to come down to personnel on special teams more so than any of the other units. Like, do you have the right punt returner, kick returner? Do you have the right gunners coming down the side? Is this guy going to set up the right kind of special teams defenses? Because you got gas on special teams a lot last year with teams starting closer to their 50-yard, closer to their side of the ball and the 50-yard line. And that is a concern, especially when your defense struggle and then your offense struggle to put up points. You can't keep falling behind on the waistline where they're starting at their 40-yard line. You know what I'm saying? Like that's bad. The closer they are to the end zone is bad. So you want to get that part of the ball in order. That's the type of unit you don't want to have to worry about overall. So you want to get a special teams coordinator who knows what they're doing, and hopefully the Falcons have done that.
Yeah. So overall, there's a bunch of question marks with the Atlanta Falcons going into this, going into this next season. And as a Falcons fan, you should be concerned. That pretty much sums up this over 40-minute conversation on the Falcons.
This is the state of the Falcons you mean before free agency and before the draft. Now, the one thing we've noticed under Dan Quinn is they've had a plan on what they want to do with him and Thomas Dimitroff in the front office. They have a plan on what they want to do, usually in the off season. So we'll see what that plan is to execute. But it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough when guys like Vic Beasley and all these dudes are are almost ready to get paid. It's like, are you going to pay these guys? And the guys that should get paid, how much are you going to pay them? You paid Matt Ryan. Julio Jones got his contract a couple of years ago. Freeman got his contract a couple of years ago. Other guys are going to be looking for their pays. You know, Grady Jarrett will be the biggest concern right now as it comes to your free agents. But on offense, it might not be any one guy. It might be offensive linemen. It might be a plethora of offensive linemen. So this is the question marks are here now, you know, right before the free agency and the draft period starts for the Falcons. But, you know, a lot of teams will have the same kind of question marks this early in the off season. A lot of teams. So we can't just look at the Falcons, but obviously we're talking about the Falcons. So everybody else is a moot point. You just got to know.
Except the Patriots.
They have question marks even. Like, you know, this is. People think because you win the Super Bowl, you don't have any question marks. It's like you're Brady now. If you couldn't see that he was clearly declining now, well, let's see how he does with a full year without Gronkowski if Gronkowski retires.
But if they get if they get Beckham, oh my gosh,
they're not getting Beckham, man. They're being serious.
Well, that's one of the things I saw that
they're not. They just signed Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham will be a New York Giant. Period. You know, you talking about Brown?
Wow.
You're talking about Brown, maybe Antonio Brown.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. That's what I meant. I don't know why I thought
Beckham. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. If they get Brown, you know what? That would be great, but it's still him throwing 10 yards to Brown. There's no 50-50 balls to throw up to Brown. Like, you got to hit Brown on the numbers, and Brady is not doing that deep anymore. So I don't think he would be a good fit in New England, but obviously he's a great wide receiver. But I think this question mark, Gronk retiring, that leaves a big question mark, man. Like, if you don't think so, that is a big. Gronk being slowed down last year left a big question mark. So, you know, without Gordon, you can see that everything was underneath, and the Rams even figured out. Finally, the Rams even figured out you got to take one of those underneath guys away, and they just made sure to take James White out of the game completely. So it's like the Patriots will have their share of question marks. The good thing about it is they have Bill Belichick.
Right. Yep. And Tom Brady. So yeah, you're right. A lot of people do have question marks going into this early in the off season. Let me just get your thoughts before we get you out of here about the combine that's coming up.
Mm-hmm. I was shocked to hear that Georgia Tech didn't have any invitees. Shocked being a word that I use in high amount of sarcasm at this point.
I mean,
but
it doesn't surprise me.
Right. It wasn't really shocking. I was just saying that for saying that purpose. The combine. It'll be very interesting to see what these young dudes do. You know, I'm not looking at the draft per se in a mock order, but this draft is very much being surrounded by talk of offensive linemen and defensive linemen / pass rushers, you know, filling this draft up at the top. You know, of course, there's guys who need quarterbacks. There are teams who need, obviously, a couple of skill position players, you know. Baltimore comes in mind right now as a guy who could really use a wide receiver, skill position guy. But this draft will be laden with offensive linemen, defensive linemen, you know, and defensive pass rushers. So it'll be interesting to see the numbers some of these guys put up. And then as different in year past where you would look solely on like the wide receivers and the quarterbacks and the cornerbacks and, you know, the running backs. You'll be looking a lot more to see those big guys with the big meat chops in the middle and see what kind of bench press they're going to do. And you want to see those edge rushers, how fast they come off the ball, how's their 40, how's their shuttle time, you know, their agility and so forth. But a couple of key guys to watch will be the handful of quarterbacks that are supposedly first-round guys. Dwayne Haskins, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, who I actually saw live. I actually saw Daniel Jones live play against Georgia Tech. And, you know, a couple other guys, Will Greer. It'll be interesting to see how they do in the combine. And especially on not only the combine but on their individual pro days. Because let's face it, right now, if you're considered a first-round quarterback, the focus will be solely on you, because there are about 4 or 5 teams that need a new guy. And I've said it before, I don't know that any of these guys getting drafted this year will be ready year one to be the guy, will be the quarterback. I think a lot of them will need to go the Pat Mahomes route, sit a full year, maybe play at the end of the season if your team is doing good or they're not playing for anything, like their playoff spot is solidified, or you play just the preseason, you sit here and you watch. You play another preseason, then you start. That's what Pat Mahomes did. You saw how great his results were. Some of these guys you've got to sit. If you look at Josh Rosen last year, he had no business starting as a rookie. No business. You know, Lamar Jackson, they bought out at the end of the season. He played pretty good, but you still see flaws in his game. Guys like Sam Darnold, okay, they wanted him to start, play under fire. You saw an improvement toward the end of the season. Baker didn't start at the beginning of the season. He played great for the amount of games he played down the stretch. So realistically, out of the 4 or 5 guys drafted in the first round, only one of them looked really good his whole tenure, and that was Baker Mayfield. So these guys getting drafted now, none of them are Baker Mayfield year one, if you ask me. They could be better than Baker Mayfield.
I was surprised at Baker Mayfield, how good he did his rookie season.
I had him being a world beater. Like, he just has it, dude. He has it. You have to have a second gear to be a quarterback. And it's not all about arm strength and what you can do if you can move out the pocket. Sometimes it comes down to heart and what you got under your waist, too. And he has all of that, plus the other skills. So I didn't know, like you said, break a record. He didn't start the full year. He breaks touchdown record as a rookie. You know, that was a little unexpected, but I knew he was going to be a stud. But these guys this year, I think any one of them you draft early will have to sit. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the combine, specifically the quarterbacks, the 4 or 5 quarterbacks that you expect to go around one.
I think it's hilarious how like the combine was usually just like literally it was a business event to put it mildly. And the NFL Network would just casually broadcast it. And now it's started to an entertainment thing.
Well, back in the day, if you remember, if I could take the audience to a little time machine back into like the 80s and the 90s when the sports coverage just started breaking the surface on how extensive it is. You know, there were times where, you know, when I was younger, you couldn't even see a different, you know, basketball team, football team. Like, you know, you only see your market team.
Right.
They were playing, and then the playoffs came, and then you got to see like a different team, or you get that one main event Sunday afternoon game, and it's like, oh, we're showing Houston versus somebody. So back in the day, they didn't show the combine. You would just get a little, like in the box score newspaper, like when you get the box score, you get a little rundown of guys. And it would be guys that your team was going to draft. You know what I mean? Like your team they do the mock drafts, and like your guy's going to draft a quarterback. So they'll show you like the 40 times of the quarterbacks that are going in the first round, or like if it was a wide receiver, they'll show you like a handful of those guys. They didn't even get an extensive look at it, other than maybe Sports Illustrated. I want to say they had a little, obviously they're bi-weekly magazine subscription, so like after the combine it would come out and all the guys' numbers would be in. It was actually worth subscribing to Sports Illustrated back then. But like now what it is this just generation of people wanting that information. So it's like the NFL Network they have to provide a service for you that's outside of the realms of what other stations will show the NFL is showing you. So like that, I don't know that it's unwelcome. I think it's actually more of a welcome sight to see the combine live in action, because it's just like watching a game and you having guys on your fantasy team. You're going to pick out certain guys and you want to see exactly how they do, and it becomes a little fun, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think too it's the exposure college football. Since ESPN became relevant, and you're kind of curious like a guy like Jadeveon Clowney when he was in college. A lot of people were curious how he was going to do in the NFL.
Right.
So I think it's that. But unfortunately, we don't have a lot more time. So where can we reach you at on social media? Or where can we reach you at the 3-point conversion? Where could we find your stuff at?
I am Stanley, AB Stanley, the senior writer for the 3pointconversion.com. You can find my articles, plus many more great articles, content, and writers at the 3pointconversion.com. I'm also Ab Stanley on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at Strakt, STRAKT _Marino. And I'm also on Instagram, Ab Stanley, the 3-point conversion.
All right, Ab. Thanks for being on the show today.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, Alex.
No problem. So with that being said, we need to get out of here soon, and I think next week we're going to, well, it's going to be overcast tomorrow. We're going to have gray skies tomorrow. I'm being the weatherman right now. But there's going to be sunshine. So there is sunshine in Atlanta's future for the next week. So next week should be nice. And we can get over this just Seattle type weather. I didn't sign up to live in Seattle, and I don't wish to live in Seattle, even though I have friends that live in Seattle. But that's besides the point. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening, especially if you're listening to this point. This was Football Friday, just a podcast that was full of football information and discussion. This is what we do every Friday, and especially if it's March Madness, because usually that March Madness Friday usually is what everyone's excited and gunning about. We don't talk about March Madness. We talk about Football Friday, or we talk about football on Fridays. That is the tradition here. That is the standard that we are going to live up to. So every Friday we are going to be talking about football. Even there's that period of summer in May-ish, beginning of the summer, June-ish, where no one talks about football. But we're talking about football here on Football Friday, here at the ATL Boxscore podcast. So, like I said before, like I've said a couple of times during the podcast, we are on all social media platforms, all the major three, Facebook, Insta, Twitter. So be sure to check us out on those platforms. Give us a follow or two, and just tell us what you think. Interact with us. We're friendly people. So also too, put how you feel in the show description. If you like the show, if you have a helpful comment or an opinion that you want to get off your chest, put that in the comment section, because we definitely would love your comments. I know I got some things wrong today, because when I'm just on these interviews, I'm just going off the dome. That's a fun thing about interviewing people, just FYI. It makes you think about a lot of things, and to me, my brain is a faster processor than my computer sometimes. So yeah, that's what happens sometimes with information that could be incorrect. But hey, this is why we're a podcast. This is why that you're just looking for something different outside of Sports Talk Radio. And hopefully we gave you that different today. So thanks, guys, for checking us out. Thanks for listening, especially listening to this part of the show. We love getting your guys' feedback, getting your input. Just hit that like button, subscribe, because we got a lot of great stuff coming for you. The Atlanta United content is on its way. I'll admit, I'm an old school guy. I'm just a baseball, basketball, football type of guy. This Atlanta soccer stuff is new. Atlanta United stuff is new. But we'll definitely get that coverage to you and talking some Atlanta United. So stay tuned for that. I know I've been saying that for the past couple weeks, but still, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope that you enjoy this weekend. I hope, too, that we got you through the traffic, that you finally got to hear some football talk. Question marks all around for the Atlanta Falcons, unfortunately, but I still feel that their potential is, on offense at least, could be very potent. Should be up to the level that the Los Angeles Rams are playing to. That's my opinion, but still a lot of question marks, like Stanley said. So thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Take care of each other out there, and we will broadcast to you. We'll podcast to you. We're going to be podcasting on Monday, so look forward to podcasting. Until then, you guys have an awesome weekend, and episode 32 is